then it tends to sit on your counter and just go to waste. So, very specific plants, like sometimes like dandelion, you can take the entire plant of dandelion. You can take the roots, you can take the leaves, you can take the flowers, you can take any time during the year, any part of the plants. But say black cohosh, you only take the root, and you only take it in early spring or late fall, because that's when it's coming back. It's got most of its energy in its roots. So know which part of the plant you're harvesting, and know why you're harvesting. Know what your recipe is. So the 2 plants that we have today, we're doing half water and half alcohol tincture, because the way that I do my research is I do about 5 different Google searches, look at 10 different websites, and just kind of take a conglomeration of everybody, what they're saying. Some people are on an extreme measure, and then other people are kind of middle of the road. So if there's a lot of people saying that a tea is very good for this plant, then I'll do a 1-to-1 pull from it. Other plants like pink lady slipper, just alcohol. That's it. Like Monotropa uniflora, the Indian ghost pipe, just alcohol. It's 100%. So when you actually go to harvest your plants, make sure that there are enough plants to harvest, that you're not going to take the entire population. Kind of the rule is about 10% of the population is the sustainable way to harvest it. Notice what you need to bring. Yeah, because like for Indian ghost pipe, you have to have your jar with the alcohol in it when you go to the plant. So you pick the plant, you brush it off, you put it straight in, because otherwise it's not going to be good by the time you get home. It will be black and purple, and it won't be good for tincturing. So yeah, things like a shovel for deeper plants, like for burdock, you definitely need a big tall shovel. You're gonna be spending a few hours digging it out with just a hand trowel. Clippers, like for some of the more woody vines, some clippers are really good. Sometimes just scissors. I always carry my Marana knife with me, because this is a really great knife. It's made in Sweden. Really any kitchen knife is good, but I like this one because it's like specifically for plants. Some people use, if they're doing like spirit work with the medicine, some people use obsidian knives, because they cut at the cellular level. They're really cool knives, but they're very, very fragile. Make sure where you're going, you have permission to be. No state parks, no private land, nothing like that. Make sure that when you find your harvest, it's away from any kind of toxins or poisons. So like generally under power lines, they'll spray. Next to the road, like 100 feet from the road is generally the common goal. I try to go a little bit further than that. Notice, like if you're right next to a cornfield, they're probably spraying that cornfield. Just to be aware, observe all of the surroundings, everything about it. And one big thing that isn't really talked about is gratitude, because these plants work, like the whole reason we're here on this planet is because plants are here. They came before us, they're very ancient, and being grateful to them isn't necessarily a spiritual thing, though it is for me. Reciprocity is very, very important for me. So I leave gifts. I say I'll give them a poem, I'll give them a song, I'll give them a prayer. Sometimes I'll bring tobacco, sacred tobacco, with me and leave it on the site if I've harvested a whole lot, or if it's a more rare one. Just really being aware that this plant has made a sacrifice, and it's made a willing sacrifice to help us heal. So when you are done identifying, researching, knowing what's going on with your plants, which parts to take, how to harvest them, and having your recipe ready at home, then it's time to harvest. So when you harvest, make sure you are only taking the plant that you have identified, that you know what it is. Don't take a plant that like, oh, this might be it. No. And if another plant gets mixed in, make sure and pull it out. Even if it's a little bit, make sure and pull it out. If it's a root that you're not sure, like I had taken some wild yam, and I had a root kind of piggybacking along, and I saw it and like, that's not the same root. So I removed it instead of like, oh, well, I'll just include it to get more tincture out of it. No, no, I don't know what that is. I'm not putting it in there. Yeah, so today we have two for me to demonstrate. We have raspberry leaf, which is one that I purchased because I moved away from the location that I had raspberry leaf. I try to take mine just as fresh, but sometimes I do purchase online. It is organic and it is sustainably, I always do sustainably grown and cultivated and harvested. But our wild plant today is yellow root. Yellow root is a fantastic plant. It is, where's my notes on it? Yep. So its Latin name, which I encourage everybody to learn the Latin names, is Xanthorrhiza simplicica. Simplicissima, yes. It's in the Raniculaceae family, which is the buttercup family, and it means yellow root. Xantho is yellow, rhiza is root. So it's a bitter, helps with digestion, helps with stomach ulcers in that manner. It helps with bile discharge. It has a liver action, helps to cleanse the liver. It is an astringent, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, which is antibacterial, antiprotozoan, antifungal, antiviral. It helps with jaundice. It helps with high blood pressure, low blood pressure, excuse me. And you can use it internally for any kind of yeast infections, and you can use it externally for any yeast infections. The active ingredient is berberine, which is what the yellow comes from, and it's used as an adjunct therapy to antibiotics and is actually being used to treat MRSA. So plants are very specific in their action. Raspberry leaf is very good for the nervous system. It heals the nervous system and helps to calm down. I actually feed this to my horse, and it helps calm her down because it acts on the nervous system. So yellow root. This is, of course, the entire plant, and if you want, these are the leaves, so you can identify it later if you want to pass that around. Yes, thank you. So I've got my knife, and it's clean for the most part, and I washed it. Before I move on to this, a mortar and pestle is a good tool to use for dried roots. To pull off the plants from the decoction, you'll want cheesecloth, and you can come up here and see what that is. This is cheesecloth. This is it new, but yeah, just various tools of the trade. This makes it easier to pour, like put a lot into a jar, this kind of tool. So yeah, and then we've got our jars here. So you just cut off the part that you want. Generally with roots and things like that, I do a rough chop and just fill the jar with it. So on here, you can tell where the stem ends and the root begins, kind of. So you want to take definitely just the root, because some plants it really does matter. I don't know if yellow root it matters so much, but sometimes it does. Just do a rough cut on all of these, and it makes things yellow, so watch out. It's like turmeric. Watch out when you're using it. Don't wear your nice Sunday dress. Or if you do, make sure it's a dark dress. And if
everybody already checked it out.
If you wanted to make these cuts a little smaller, then that would be perfectly fine. So I've already washed these. I just used the nail brush in the kitchen in there. A toothbrush is good. Cool running water is perfectly fine. Nothing special about it. Just if you're using the leaves of a plant, make sure and don't get the leaves wet because that will cause them to wilt. And if you can, just brush off whatever dirt is on there, and use it that way. Use it as fresh as possible. We got a nice big one here, and this grows in rhizomes. A lot of times they'll grow in rhizomes. This is very shallow, so it's very easy to get out. Sometimes, like I said, like with burdock, everybody's familiar with burdock, I hope, because that's a fantastic one, really good for the digestion. Burdock is like literally the root grows that deep. Another one is like milkweed and pleurisy root. Pleurisy root is very, very deep. I just transplanted one. It was the size of my arm. Okay, so in some things like cinnamon, I'll get my cinnamon because I can't obviously grow that. I'll get my cinnamon in powder form because then I can use it in the kitchen. With things like powder and the kinds of plants that will settle a great deal, you do want to shake it, especially in the beginning. Something like this, I'll shake it maybe once a week. And I always do my decoctions for at least 8 weeks at a time. Some people say overnight is fine. I'm not really of that camp. I think the longer you can keep it in the tincture, the more medicine is being pulled out of it. Okay. If you will reach down there, and there underneath the handle right there, there's a little button.
Okay.
If you will turn that back on, and so it will boil one more time before we use it.
All right.
Yep. And then,
there it is.
yep. Thank you. So I got my root. This is a little less than what I like to use, but it's still going to be okay. I like to make mine really, really strong so that people can take less, but I'll add to this whenever I get back. And that's another great thing is you can make it and then add to it later if you decide that, hey, you know what, that is a little bit less than what I wanted. So generally, I do at least a quarter full on these. Whoops. The loose pour, quarter to half. And I like the ball jars because they have the measurements on them, and it's really easy to know because the water will go in half. And that's, I love the way raspberry leaf smells. So yeah, and usually I let the water cool, but for today we'll just go ahead and put the alcohol in. I use only 100 proof because that's the best way to get all of everything out of the medicine. And again, I do it for 8 weeks at a time. Thank you.
Welcome.
So a lot of times, and like with chamomile, just use it as an example. When you pour the hot water in, the volatile oils will come up. So as soon as you pour the water in, cover it. And as soon as it's covered, let it cool off, and then put your alcohol tincture in. We're not going to have time to let it cool off today. But yeah, the same principle of just covering it so quickly is important. And that'll turn a nice yellow color. Now don't drink this straight. This is not my nightcap at all. It tastes pretty terrible. Okay, so then that's literally all a tincture is just identifying, knowing what you're doing as far as a recipe goes, as far as what plants to harvest, what parts of the plants to harvest. And you either fill it half with water, half with alcohol, or 100% with alcohol. It's very easy.
And what's the purpose of the water? Just to not use so much alcohol?
No. Some of the plants, they have the constituents in them, the chemical compounds, the enzymes in them. Sometimes they do respond very, very well to a water decoction, a water tea, basically. If you run into a recipe that says make a tea out of it, 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 you know, in your Google searches and things like that, then I will do a half water tincture. Because like raspberry tea, raspberry leaf tea, you always do that. Yellow root is another one that is good as a tea, but I like the tinctures because they have a pretty much indefinite shelf life, and I like that. I don't like my stuff to go bad after I've done all this work. So yeah, we'll do the raspberry leaf as well. Like I said, I usually let it cool, but it won't be a problem. And another thing is, so after you've gotten everything all happy in their jars, you want to, and I did not bring my labels, but you want to label it. So I just use Sharpie on the jar because that comes right off. What the Latin name is, what the common name is, what the recipe is. So I usually put 1-to-1 for water, alcohol, half-half. And then the draw date, the date that is 8 weeks from the day that this went in. 6 weeks is acceptable, but 8 weeks is ideal. And I usually, like for this one, I will leave the yellow root in there until I have to take it out, until it's like that much tincture left in the bottom, and I have to remove the yellow root because it will continue to pull the medicine out of it. Super. Anybody have any questions?
Yeah, I do.
Yes.
How do you use it?
Thank you. Yes. So it depends on the medicine. So, like dandelion, you can use dandelion all day, any day,
But
however
do
much you
mix
want.
it into something else, or
Yes.
you just take it straight, or?
I use droppers, and I have a booth up top. If you would please come and check out what I have, and but it depends on the plant. It depends on the medicine, and the plant depends on how you're using it. So I put mine in droppers. You can just measure out like 1/8 of a teaspoon at a time. That's roughly how much a dropper is. Dropper full.
Yeah. Okay.
You can put it in water. I usually put mine in hot water in the morning. I put some of them in that manner, and then some of them in my water bottle so that I can drink it through the day. Like Solomon seal. Solomon seal does much better if you can take a little bit through the day. That's just the way it works. But like my lousewort, my skeletal muscle relaxant, I'm gonna take that in the morning. I need that in the morning. You can put it in juice. You can take it straight.
There's such a small amount that you're using that you're not really getting the alcohol.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. And if somebody is very particular about the alcohol, it can be evaporated off.
And there's tinctures you can make without alcohol too, right?
There are, but the alcohol is really, really the best way to get all of the medicine. You can use glycerin, but I actively choose not to because you can evaporate the alcohol off, and the glycerin just doesn't do the same job as the alcohol does. There are other plants, like you can take 3 droppers full of chamomile tincture, and you're gonna be fine. You're gonna be asleep, but you're gonna be fine. Something else like Eastern red cedar, just take 10 drops. Please don't take more than that because it is really strong.
What does that do for you?
That is an expectorant. Yeah, it's one of the best expectorants on the planet. And it's just such a beautiful taste. I like cinnamon as well because it tastes very good. That's a good blood sugar regulator, anti-inflammatory. So, yeah. Thank you. Good questions. Anybody else? I have some identification books. So on the handout it says, please don't go out without a field guide if you're not used to finding these plants. My go-to is the Peterson's Field Guide for medicinal plants and herbs of the southeast and central United States. That's obviously my go-to. My boyfriend calls it my Bible, my plant Bible. My sister got me the Scout's Guide to Wild Edibles. This one has some nice recipes in it. There's a lot of books. This one is very, very good as well. It's specifically the Southern Appalachia plants. This one has like a Monotropa uniflora, the Indian ghost pipe. Passion flower, yes, yeah. I'm gonna be making passion flower medicine in the next year when my plants come up. Cool. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for coming in and supporting me.